That's great. They're doing the construction too?
Nope.
Well, why don't you ask them about them, because that would be really, that's really the critical question.
Yeah, well, it is big, though. I mean, it's just that, yeah, that's it.
So when I read that, I go, well, that's a clever way to not have to address the school issue.
I mean, I'd go scratching and clawing on that one.
All right, folks, it's going to be just a couple more minutes. Apologies.
No, that's true. Yeah, mine is Jewish Hungarians.
Yeah, there you go. Families chewed some of the same dirt then, for sure.
So did you go to school out here? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, you grew up in San Diego.
I grew up in San Mateo, went to San Diego State.
Mm-hmm.
Back up there. There's a recent show on PBS. I believe it was called Jewish in America.
Yeah,
And
it's a series.
they really, they showed the, the Lower East Side and the immigration of both the Jewish immigrants. It was really interesting for me because a lot of my parents had conveyed that to me. Actually, see the photography, and, the way people really live, what a hard life out there.
Yeah.
15 minutes of fame.
Break up the song or something.
Clearly masters of the presentation technique of allowing suspense to build. Welcome back. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Please join me for our third presentation in welcoming from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, here to present their Vivo Towers proposal, the Poly Collaborative Housing Team.
Thank you, Matt. It must be flu season for computers. Sorry about that. We'd like to thank Bank of America first for this great opportunity, our jury for their guidance along the way, and our professional support, in particular our development partner, Roman Galasso and Associates, for their help as well. We are Poly Collaborative Housing of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Part of our team presenting today will be Colin Clark, presenting the need and planning, Billy Jenks, our technician and design master, Eric Simon, presenting sustainability, and Adam Wyndham, presenting the finance, and myself, Alex Smith, presenting the presenters. San Diego needs housing. Their existing mix of SROs, lofts, and one-bedroom apartments neglects the families in the downtown area. Families that otherwise commute many miles for work to service the downtown area. Our project, Vivo Towers, serves to remedy part of that need with a 2-acre development near Little Italy section of downtown San Diego. Through sustainably packaging a financially sound with a 50, 40, and 30% AMI mix, and an aesthetically harmonious and sustainable as well, we're striving to get LEED Silver on this, and regulatory compliant affordable housing development, we intend to share with you our vision of progress. So how does a project of this size and scope start? It starts with a need. Colin Clark will be taking you through. Colin?
Thank you, Alex. That's right, it does start with the need. And 13% of workers right now earn less than $20,000 per year in San Diego. Within 1 mile, 40.6% of households earn less than $25,000. The average home value is $736,000, and the median household income is only $29,000. Now, people want to live in San Diego. The Travel and Leisure magazine's annual survey of America's favorite cities had America's best weather as San Diego, and visitors and residents actually ranked affordability as the city's worst feature. Now, when it comes to new projects along the pipeline, one project in downtown had 800 families on the waiting list, so there's a huge need. And in terms of federally subsidized Section 8 housing, the waiting list is 40,000 names long. Now, many often pay 50%, even 70% of their income, which is clearly unacceptable. And if you look at a regular studio apartment in San Diego, it costs $1,400 a month, while a 2-bedroom rental goes for $1,920. Now, fair market rent is $1,205, which translates to you have to make $48,000 a year, which translates into a $23 an hour hourly wage, meaning that you have to work 124 hours per week, 52 weeks per year. Now there's also a need for downtown schools. The Unified School District right now is struggling to support the increasing student population with its existing facilities. And CCDC is extremely motivated to see new innovative educational facilities developed in conjunction with other uses. Harborside School in the last year closed because of insufficient funds, and the Children's Museum School had lost its space, so also had to move to a temporary location. Now CCDC, the Center City Development Corporation, had to step in and formulate a educational task force, which their idea was to help solve this problem and also plan for the future of downtown schools. Now we also have some demographic information in terms of schools. There's 12% between ages 0 and 4, and 30% of the population within 5 miles are under the age of 15. The Downtown Community Plan also mentions that children are expected to increase in numbers. Now before we go any further, let's define affordable. HUD defines it as no more than 30% of your income, and that also includes rent and utilities. And there's been a historic rise in unaffordability, as you can see with this table. In 2000, 46% of renters were living in unaffordable housing, and in 2005, 58% of renters were living in unaffordable housing. Now the mortgage crisis, everybody's talking about this, so has it made San Diego more affordable? The short answer is no. 2007, foreclosures rose 353% over 2006, and default notices, which are the beginning of the process, rose 128%. Unaffordability is pushing residents out. It's making San Diego 8th in the nation among the counties with high domestic out-migration, and people are having to seek less expensive areas to live. Now, this is a map of the existing downtown affordable projects, and as you can see, most of it is clustered in the eastern portion of downtown, and so what we're doing is we're providing it in an area with more need that doesn't really have very much of it. And so we are providing it near the waterfront and with waterfront near the San Diego Bay and views and all that good stuff. Now, condos are the major development that's been going on lately. So the majority of units in downtown are studios, 87% to be exact. And this ignores the need for families in downtown. And so there's a great demand for affordable housing downtown. The average household size is less than 2 within 5 miles. Half of families earn less than $45,000 a year. And Downtown Affordable Housing Strategy by CCDC says that we want to get some 2 and 3 bedroom units in downtown. So there's 3 major problems. One is the lack of affordable housing for families in downtown. And 2 is Harborside just closed. Children's Museum has been displaced. And so we've come up with one creative solution. Housing, 173 affordable units, downtown educational facilities, 2 charter schools, and ground floor retail. Now we also had to overcome another barrier, which was that zoning requires at least 50% of gross floor area for employment uses. So what we're doing is we're working with CCDC to obtain a zoning variance to allow for affordable housing by creating these educational facilities. So in other words, we have to develop the schools in order to develop the housing. Now some context. We're in the Central District, the core district. We're within a zone of pedestrian priority, and there's already these workers working in downtown, so they deserve to live in downtown and walk to work, bike to work, and use all the local transit options. And so 31% of people walk to work, but 40% drive a car alone. This is something we really want to change. You can see our site here is just 2 blocks north of a number of transit options, including the Coaster, which is regional rail, as well as 100 bus lines, and the Star of India is over here, as well as a number other different tourist attractions. Parks and open space, just 2 blocks to the northwest are the waterfront parks. There's a park being proposed just 2 blocks south, and there's also the world famous Balboa Park to the northeast, less than a mile away. These are the amenities within walking distance. You've got, like I said, the Star of India ship, the Petco Park, as well as Seaport Village, and Horton Plaza is also in here, as well as, of course, Little Italy and the Gaslamp District. Now, in terms of what already exists on the site, there's this 3-story vacant office building currently for sale, as well as the abandoned Harborside School, which I spoke about a little earlier, as well as automotive repair facilities and the corner parking lot. Now I'm going to hand it over for design to Billy Jenks.
All right, thank you, Colin. Let's see how we work this. Now, Vivo Towers is really unique in that it's a fully mixed-use project. We incorporate affordable housing, education, commercial across India Street, as well as office capacity and live-work units on the corner of the southeast of the site. Through rehabilitation of the existing office building that you see there in the front there, we're creating the Urban Academy, which is actually the Harborside School reborn. We're also providing a new construction for the museum school, which Colin mentioned. And by sharing one site, these schools enjoy the efficiency of sharing common spaces, such as the library, the multipurpose cafeteria, and playground, which the playground is a huge issue. These urban schools have very little space for open space, so having 2 schools sharing one playground is a big advantage for us. The schools strive for efficient circulation with minimal interior corridors and also use of exterior corridors so we don't have to use heating and ventilation for those spaces. Here you can see the first floor and the parking levels below. The Vivo Towers, the residential part, is actually a wrapped podium building. So that consists of a 4-level parking garage, which extends 3 levels below ground, which is then wrapped on the ground floor by commercial along India Street here, live workspaces on Kettner, the lobby and shared spaces here, and then the schools to the north. One of the big issues for this project was the school loading. There's a lot of people coming in to the schools at 8 o'clock and leaving at 3, similar to the residents leaving at 8 in the morning, and so there's a lot of congestion. To help mitigate that, we're providing drop-off spaces along Ash Street and along Kettner Street, as well as limited use for the schools in the parking garage here. One of the issues is these are all one-way streets. This runs south, this runs north, this runs west, and this runs east. So the access to the parking garage, we have a double entry here, double exit here, where school people can come in here, go up here, and exit, whereas the residents can come up here and use their own dedicated lane to exit, trying to mitigate some of those issues that go along with the circulation here. The parking garage provides 159 parking spaces, which currently allows for a 90% residential parking ratio, plus 17 spaces for the commercial and schools. This could be obviously readjusted to fit different needs. CCDC has actually agreed to a 75% parking ratio if we need to bump it down, so there's a lot of flexibility there in our design. The housing focus is, as Colin said, on families. This is due to the lack of affordable family housing in downtown. A lot of the affordable housing is 1 unit or 1-bedroom units and SROs, but there's a huge number of low-income jobs in the downtown area. There's service jobs in the office buildings, there's Horton Plaza and these huge retail centers that have a lot of low-income jobs, and there's nowhere for these people with families to live next to their jobs. They've been commuting from Chula Vista, more affordable areas outside San Diego. So we wanted to provide a lot of family units and bring them back so they can reduce pollution. They're not driving as much. It's going to save them money on commuting. It's just it's an all-around win-win situation. You can see one of the issues with a tower building and families is kids higher up, no places to play, things like that. So we provided most of our 2 and 3 bedroom units on the podium and the mid-rise residential portion. You can see here, and you can also see it on our renderings in the bottom right there. These are actually townhome units on the mid-rise portion. So they're 2-story units with an internal stair, 2 and 3 bedrooms, and this provides for a limited width, a lot of bedrooms. Otherwise, you need a lot of glazing to accommodate those bedrooms. This also makes it unnecessary to have common circulation on the third floor and on the fifth floor, as you can see, which actually saves 4,500 square feet, which we were able to reclaim for rentable area and usable residential area. Other efficiencies in the project are realized in finishes and construction types. Natural exposed finishes are used wherever possible. As you can see on the tower, we have these exposed concrete finishes. Also, the floors of the tower units are exposed concrete, which is sealed. This is a really durable finish, which is going to reduce operating or reduce replacement costs, as well as acting as a thermal mass to help keep temperatures constant inside the building. The mid-rise portion that you can see in the bottom left here is a modified Type 5 wood frame building with normal flat stucco finish, really easy to build. We then add these wood prefabricated balcony articulations by just pretty much bolting them onto the outside of the building. Really cost effective, and it provides a nice articulation which is consistent with the 25-foot module which downtown San Diego has historically seen. Majority of the community space is provided on extensive outdoor decks due to the favorable climate. We have a large outdoor deck in the middle here, which you can see above the stairs there. There's also a deck here for the mid-rise portion, and a deck here which is connected to a 1,000 square foot internal community space with a shared kitchen. So residents can use that kitchen as kind of flex space for any kind of things they might have. We also have a fitness center on the second floor here, which is attached to a deck, perfect for Tai Chi or yoga classes. And one of our managers is actually a dedicated person for connecting these people with the various services in the community and surrounding, so they're going to manage the use of those spaces. Other on-site amenities that I haven't mentioned already include an internet cafe at ground level in the commercial space for both the residents and the surrounding community to provide computer access. Space for a future daycare facility. One of our townhomes is dedicated for conversion to daycare if the need arises, which is right off the grass on the podium. And also bicycle parking and storage, which is near the residential lobby. Services in the community include a community service coordinator, as I said, is going to connect these to the people. You have employment-based education, vocational workforce training, those type of things. We have a focus on sustainability-related programs, such as the transportation information, sustainable living workshops, trying to enable and get the residents to live sustainably and educate them. You have a permanent ESL program, possibly led by one of the residents who has his rent reduced in turn for providing this teaching service, and also after-school care, which could be provided in the schools. And the schools, I forgot to mention, are a great amenity for the whole community. After 3 o'clock, they open the fence, they open the gates, and that whole park becomes a community park, as well as sharing community spaces inside the school for after-school programs and stuff like that. So it's a real amenity for both our project and the community. And due to the favorable climate, this is actually a movie I'm supposed to play. Oh well. Due to the favorable climate and the importance of outdoor space, the farm is largely driven by solar access to the site. So as you can see, our tower is located on the southeast side of the site. We would have put it on the northeast, but we're trying to rehabilitate that building. So this allows all the afternoon sun to come into the spaces. You see the footprint of the museum school here. It's cut at a 45-degree angle to allow a lot of afternoon sun to fully expose that corner playground at all times. This courtyard is flanked on the south by the stairway, which opens up that creates that architectural articulation to let the sun into that space. And also balconies on all the tower units provide shade to the units below, as well as these vertical elements here and here and on this side to protect the west-facing blast from exposure. The natural palette of the building adds to the dramatic effect of a simple yet powerful iconic element that you see here on the south face. This is actually the east elevation, so that's the south face of the tower there. This is a green blade that slices up the whole elevation of the tower. It's actually a steel mesh frame that's covered in ivy, which is grown in a planter at each floor, which then connects to form one larger, green element there. While this serves a practical function of keeping the south tower balconies cool in the afternoon, it also serves as a metaphor for all of the Vivo Tower's residents collectively forming a greater lively community as one, just to set the plants come together to form that nice green blade. And this is also a powerful tribute publicly to the project's commitment to sustainability. So now I'm going to let Eric talk a little bit more about the sustainable features of Vivo Towers.
Thanks, Billy. Because sustainability is such an important part of our project, I want to make sure that I cover the insights of the poly-collaborative housing approach on how we did this. I also want to talk about one of our primary project goals of encouraging and enabling the sustainable lifestyle, as well as talk about how we approach sustainability as affordability, and then talk about some of the specific features of Vivo Towers. So sustainability is a really commonly used buzzword in today's market economy. And when we start developing or start programming and development on new projects, we also start to hear words like recycled content, green building, renewable energy, and carbon footprint. But what do these concepts really mean? What do these phrases actually mean to us? And more specifically, how can we utilize these concepts and incorporate them into a final building product? Well, poly-collaborative housing has given us a significant amount of thought. We believe that we will deliver a project that has incorporated these elements and will serve as a model example for other affordable housing projects to follow. With this in mind, we did come up with a primary project goal of encouraging and enabling a sustainable lifestyle. Now, encouraging and enabling are complementary actions, but they're separate, so it's important that we define and understand each one and what role it plays in our project. Encouraging a sustainable lifestyle is the promotion of voluntary activities. Vivo Towers has items such as energy use monitors, solar-powered trash compactors, and a car share program. All of these are voluntary items, and they all encourage a sustainable lifestyle. We wanted to take this a step further, so we wanted to see how we could enable a sustainable lifestyle. And by enabling a sustainable lifestyle, what we've decided to do is integrate these elements into the primary building functions so that residents need to take no further action in order to live that sustainable lifestyle. So a common reaction to this might be a cost, because it does cost a premium to live a sustainable lifestyle. And my simple answer to that is that sustainability is affordability. It's important to have a long-term mindset when we approach these sustainable elements. This building is going to be retained, and because we have a long-term mindset, we can achieve that affordability by practicing sustainability. That affordability is going to be returned to the residents of Vivo Towers in two areas: utility costs and life cycle costs. The utility costs are more direct to the residents, with obviously the life cycle being more to the life of the building itself. The utility costs will be reduced by the use of photovoltaic cells, green roof systems, and a rainwater retention for gray water recycling. It's estimated that only 2% of affordable housing actually integrates a sustainable element into their building. And with the rising utility costs and families living on the edge, trying to make minimum monthly payments, the rising utility costs can really be the tipping point for many of these families. So it's something that we really wanted to pay attention to and enable our residents to live that sustainable lifestyle. The life cycle costs are going to be recognized through a green roof system and reduced HVAC, as Billy mentioned a little bit earlier. The green roof systems will help protect the membrane of the building, and the reduced HVAC minimizes the wear and tear of the building systems. So in San Diego, the most abundant natural resource that we have is the daylight, with over 265 days per year. So with this abundant resource, we decided that it was the most efficient use to utilize natural daylighting throughout the building. A good mix of the units have window systems on at least 2 facades, which enables this natural daylighting to come in and act as a thermal mass, heating the building and thereby reducing the energy consumption. And it's also, with the cross ventilation that you receive from it, that's also a reduction in the HVAC that's needed. It's also important to note that the schools will benefit from this, not just the residents. Because we've utilized flexible space planning within the schools, they will also benefit from this natural daylighting. And then, an added bonus to the natural daylighting is that we get to have the wonderful views of downtown San Diego. Another one of the important things that we plan on implementing at Vivo Towers is the photovoltaic cells. We contacted San Diego Gas and Electric, and at this point we have 2 options that we're pursuing. Option 1 would be to lease the roof space to San Diego Gas and Electric. The benefit to this is that it would reduce the upfront cost that they would be responsible for that. And then the cost savings would be coming back to the residents in the form of a subsidy. The second option is to install the photovoltaic array ourselves. We have approximately 5,400 square feet on the west roof that is available for this photovoltaic array. And we believe that with an installation cost of approximately $500,000, we would also qualify for the expected buy-down program, which would give us a rebate. And with the cost savings, we expect that that photovoltaic would pay for itself within 3 years and then start generating cost savings direct to the residents of approximately $10,000 per month in utility costs. So as Billy mentioned, we do have a building layout design that promotes sustainability. These two areas right here and right here are the natural circulation for the building. You can see that in the higher tower, we've minimized the hallway access, and then on the lower tower area, we actually have outdoor circulation. Both of these elements reduce the need for HVAC, again, promoting sustainable lifestyles. So one of the most unique elements, as Billy talked about a little bit, but I'll touch on a little bit more, are the edible walls. The edible walls that we've integrated into the building are essentially a plant system that allow for residents of Vivo Towers to interact with these edible walls by taking these plants and actually using them for their own food source. Because we have the natural daylighting, it promotes plant life, which is definitely a plus in our case. This does promote urban agriculture, and it also helps subsidize the rising costs of food. But most importantly, it encourages and it enables a sustainable lifestyle. So it's really not our primary goal to change the needs of the residents or to change the lifestyles. We just want to help them achieve this sustainable lifestyle through these elements that we've integrated directly into the building. And to take our proposal into reality, I'm going to hand it over to Adam to talk about our plans.
Before I get into some of the project specifics, I just want to give you guys some background on our relationship with our development partner, Barone Galasso. Poly Collaborative Housing and Barone Galasso and Associates have been working to achieve a realistic approach for this development. We've been working through numerous financial models to get this project to this schematic stage that it needs to be at. And the proposal that you have in front of you is our most current iteration of that financial strategy. So, a project overview. We have a site that's roughly 60,000 square feet. We'll be providing 2 urban schools, the Urban Academy and the Museum School, in addition to 173 units of affordable rental housing, targeted towards large family development, also providing commercial retail space, live-work lofts, and 3 floors of underground parking. And the total development cost for this project is roughly $84 million. And for the rest of this presentation, we'll omit the financial discussion on the school portion. Our development budget begins with our land acquisition. The existing office building, through our contacts in the commercial real estate market, is listed at $5 million. The remaining 50,000 square feet of the site will be acquired at $300 per square foot. The CCDC will acquire all of the site as well as the existing office building. You can see the pink area is the part which will be attributed to the schools, and the green area is for the affordable housing. And this will be leased back to the development at $1 per year. In the determination of our construction costs, we contacted Swinnerton Builders in San Diego. They build projects like this all the time. They're actually building the project directly to the west of our site, Sapphire Tower, and they gave us some of our critical cost estimates. The tower core and shell at $200 per square foot, commercial space at $150 per square foot because the tenant improvement will be, all the finishes and fixtures will be provided by the tenant that leased that space. Underground parking at $100 per square foot. And in keeping in mind the sustainable aspects that we'll be providing, we wanted to include a LEED premium, 5% addition to cost, so we can account for these sustainable aspects that we're having in our project. In addition, some of our funding sources triple prevailing wage, so we've included a 20% increase, and other soft costs such as building permits and developer-specific fees are determined off Barone Galasso and Associates estimates, or what they use for their in-house costs. And that leads us to Total development costs, as I said before, of roughly $84 million, and an eligible basis of about $77 million. The total cost breakdown, let's see, little technical difficulties. Roughly $70 million of the project is hard costs. Remaining $15 million or so is in soft costs. And that breaks down into the following 5 categories: financing costs, permitting fees, consultants, capitalized reserves, including the capitalized replacement reserve, as well as operating reserve, and then other soft costs, legal fees, building permits, and such. When it comes to our operating budget, 100% of the units are all below the 50% AMI level. And as you can see, we have 50% of our units in the 50% category, 40% in the 40, and 10% in the 30. And those projects are evenly distributed among the 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, so we're not having all the 3 bedroom units, loaded in the highest AMI category. All these units will be available for everybody. And our project is actually is subject to more restrictive rents due to its classification under the California redevelopment law and utilizing low-income housing tax credits. So these maximum rental limits are actually more restrictive than what the tax credit committee has in their guidance. So that's something that we've also incorporated for financial feasibility. From our operating budget, this is a selected line items. You see the total effective gross income of $1.8 million. Subtract that our management fee, which Barone Galasso, they are also a management company, and at Project Conversion will manage this property. We get total project expenses, which are roughly $4,200 per unit per month, and a debt service coverage ratio of 1.23. We have a total financing expense of $875,000 that at the project permanent conversion will be amortized at 4.5% or 4.25% for 30 years, and that'll be tax-exempt bond financing. Now, our overall financing strategy, we've gone through a couple different models, especially in the early stages when we were developing our massing study. We were looking at using the 9% credits, but our overall development cost and the number of units disqualified us for that program. So for a more realistic approach, we're using the federal 4% low-income housing tax credits with tax-exempt bond financing. And one of the nice things about this program is by providing 50% of our development costs covered by and meeting this 50% test and covered by tax-exempt bond financing, we automatically qualify for the 4% tax credit allocation on a non-competitive basis, and these credits do not count against the state's volume cap. In addition to the tax credits and the tax-exempt bond financing, we'll be using some CCDC soft financing, Prop 1C transitory development, and a multi-housing program for covering our project costs. So our overview, as you can see, a project of this size and complexity requires layering of multiple financing sources. This is our project at permanent phase, federal 4%, our San Diego CCDC soft loan, tax-exempt bond financing on a permanent basis, TOD funding, MHP, and a deferred developer fee. The syndication of our tax credits, as well as the underwriting of our bond, will be taken care of by Red Capital Group. And they will underwrite the bond and syndicate the tax credits, which will flow to Vivo Towers and be used some will be used during the construction phase, some will be used during the permanent phase. CCDC, providing the soft financing, will also be a limited partner in this project, ensuring that the project stays affordable throughout the time frame that their money is in there. Now, to show the way the funds flow, initially we begin with the low-income housing tax credit equity, and we've modeled this a couple different ways, trying to keep as much of the equity out in the later phase to maximize our per unit, our dollar value for tax credits. And this is what we've come up with to be the most affordable and reduce the amount of loan burden that will be on the CCDC. So initially we'll draw on the tax credit equity. 47% of that will come in during the construction phase. From there we have the CCDC soft loan, and then we'll have a 2-year tax-exempt revenue bond that will be in during the construction phase, which meets the 50% test, and that actually includes the bond underwriting expense and the interest reserve for that 2-year period. And at project conversion, that $46 million of tax-exempt bond financing, the way that gets paid down is our other sources of funds come in at the permanent stage, pay down that bond until we get to the point where we convert the two-year tax-exempt revenue bonds to a 30-year fully amortized bond, and this is funded off of the debt service from the previous calculation, which gives us a total project permanent sources, low-income housing tax credit equity, CCDC, soft financing, the tax-exempt bond, TOD, the MHP program, and our deferred developer fee to cover the entire $84 million development cost. And in the permanent financing phase, you see that low-income housing tax credit, the CCDC soft loan, as well as the tax-exempt bond cover roughly 76% of the development costs, while the other sources such as the deferred developer fee, multi-housing program, and the Prop 1C cover the remaining 25%. In the cash flow analysis, as we saw before, the net operating income divided by that 1.23 debt service gives us our bond payment of $875,000. In addition to that, we have the required annual interest payment for the TOD and the MHP at 0.42% of principal, and which ultimately leads us to a project after all required debt service debts coverage of 1.15. Developer plans to recoup roughly $250,000 of the deferred developer fees spread evenly over 10 years. And the remaining funds are dispersed to our soft financing sources between the CCDC, MHP, and TOD. And then a short form cash flow analysis shows our development in years 1, 2, and 3, and then all the way out in 13, 14, and 15. And we can see that the revenues in the project as well are growing and our finances are improving. So if we come to the point at year 15 where this project needs to be refinanced, all that accrued interest on the TOD and MHP will be refinanced and then provided in the new financing structure. And with that,
Thank you, Adam. Vivo Towers targets the need for affordable housing through a dynamic financial structure. It supplements progress with sustainable design and operation, conforms to regulations with political feasibility, and meshes all this into a program that fits. We, Poly Collaborative Housing, along with our various support, stand behind this vision of progress in community, helping the lives of those in need. This time we'll take questions.
Thanks, guys. Questions from the jury?
What do you grow on an edible wall?
Yeah, that's it. I know.
You can choose to grow anything you want, but it would be edible plants, different herbs, tomatoes. You can choose whatever you want.
I love
It's
that
an
concept.
interchangeable system.
That's a great concept. I like that.
Since you're on energy, I didn't understand the energy use monitors. Where will they go? In the
Energy use monitors are actually in each unit, and then there's an additional building energy use monitor management system to supervise.
on different question on financing. Since the schools are such an important part, could you at least talk a little bit about financing
Sure.
that?
And you'll find it in the back of the proposal. And what we did, because educational facility finance is so completely different from this. We didn't want to delve too far into it, but we've actually made a presentation to the educational task force already on this. And what we did is we did a development budget, just a rough development budget, and we took that and assuming that all the development costs, they don't know land costs, all the development costs are paid for on a construction loan with interest that all of it converts to a permanent loan at project conversion, and taking that and doing like a worst case, best case scenario analysis in terms of financing terms, 30 years versus 40 years, and different interest rates. We calculated what the annual funding, the annual funding for each school would be on an allocation basis based on their square footage of the whole school site, and then broke that down into determining how much funding per student that requires, because that goes to schools' ADA, the average daily allowance that they get per child, and kind of showing the CCDC and the educational task force, what it's going to cost to put schools into the downtown. And other options that can be explored is the impact fees that we have to pay for this project can be funneled directly. Maybe this is all up to CCD and we have no control over that, but a thought that that we had was funneling all those impact fees and school fees instead of going to the general pool for San Diego, having those directly attributed to those two schools and decreasing that annual or that per student amount. That way, it makes it more feasible for those schools to be able to justify this new construction of these new schools and be able to actually operate on it in a daily allowance or annual per student allowance.
And another question, which is a similar question I wanted to ask the other group, but I forgot then, so you get to get it.
Okay.
So when are you looking to apply for MHP? Because it supposedly will go out in spring of 2009. So did you look at another scenario?
Like we were saying before, this project we're approaching on a very realistic standpoint. It doesn't end here for us. We've got more negotiations with our developer partner, with our contact at Red Capital, Evan Becker, set up in the next, in the future. And hopefully we'll be getting down to San Diego again to present this more fleshed out project. But in reality, I doubt the project would go ahead at that point. Just because assuming that we started the development process now, we've got schematic design, producing construction documents, and all the funding applications that are required. I don't see that this project, applying for those funds in 2009, just through all the red tape that we have to get through to actually get to a point where this project is ready to even start the actual process. So in terms of your question, I don't think we'll be at that.
I would just like to comment that the overall concept of the financing scheme and structure is quite well done. I would say a couple of things, though. There is a $30 million cap on a bond application, so you'd have to get a waiver from
Right.
CIDLAC on that.
Through reading through those regulations, we saw that $30 million cap. It also says, we can request a variance if we can demonstrate that our project, certain factors. But the one that would apply to us is that, we really can't build this project in a phasing financing structure in terms of, just the way it's built all over the podium and just the general constructability of the project. It's not really feasible to phase that kind of financing. So I think that our case would be, pretty good for requesting a variance.
Yeah. Well, that's actually correct. Right now, they're actually capped it at 30, and they're not giving any waivers, and they'll require a. You just would have to do it with a taxable tail bond.
Right.
So your cost will be a little bit higher to get it done, and you would still meet the 50% test if you did that taxable tail. The other thing is that you had about $5 million in MHP money, and presuming that it does continue on. I'm wondering, I think this project would probably qualify for more, or at least up to the maximum of $10 million.
And what we tried to do for the Prop 1C, the transitory development, as well as the MHP funding, is we just took their base loan amount, which is $30,000 per rent restricted unit for MHP, and I believe the TOD is $50,000 per rent restricted unit.
Mm-hmm.
So we just took the base amount, and that kind of goes to our conservative nature when approaching this project. Like Eric talked to cost savings that we get from photovoltaic cells, those aren't included in reduction to our operating budget because, like we said, we're not sure if that's going to be something we'll do like a capital investment up front or whether it's something we lease back. That's still kind of in the mix. So we decided not to include those savings. So that kind of goes to our risk mitigation as well as being under or just using those base funding amounts. I'm sure that through creative structuring the project we could get more, but we're just showing right now. And if that was the case, we'd probably use that funding to reduce what the city's burden would be. Soft financing.
So would that conservative attitude be the reason for not including tax credits on the photovoltaics right now, too?
Right.
Okay.
I was going to ask a question about the Section 48, the tax credits on PV systems, which I guess nobody's really included. You have an capitalized operating reserve of $2.3 million?
Right, and that's what that should be is calculations all work out. That's 3 months of debt service, that's stabilization, as well as operating expenses.
I think that's way over what it needs to be. I think your operating expenses were about $750, and the debt service was something around the same.
Right.
So you're over a year's worth.
We got good cushion.
Conservative.
That'll make the project less expensive.
You won't once the financing
Actually-
sources get a hold of it.
Yeah. Look,
What
the
I
lender
would
loves
say
it.
is the
Look,
lenders
the
would
lender.
probably like to see more contingency on a project of this scale and scope. So I would suggest that might be the first
And that's one thing
adjustment
we
that
want
you
to
make.
put this thing together. Is this is such a dynamic process putting these development budgets together.
Yeah.
We explored options of condoing out the top part of the unit and selling those at lowering the tower to meet that 150 unit requirement to use the 9% tax credits. There's just a whole host of funding, funding ways that we've looked at this, and it's always going to keep changing. I wouldn't doubt that this gets tweaked and changed around, at least 5 more times before this project.
Only
or
5.
more than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a really dynamic process that we're learning from. And, it can get frustrating at times. You get it all done, and then all of a sudden you come back and you're like, okay, we're not going to do that. Or the city will say, well, actually, we don't plan on funding that much for this soft financing. You need to make it up somewhere else. So it's definitely a learning experience.
Well, that goes back to my comment to the UC Davis group that, being a developer, you always want to have more than one scenario under which you can develop your project, structure your financing.
Right.
So you're speaking to that now, which is very good. The other point I'd like to make is that I'm assuming that your development partner in this is the kind of deep pockets partner in this, because up front during the construction period on a project of this scale, a lender is also going to want to see that the developer has their own equity into the deal, not just the soft financing and the tax credits that will be going in. So that might be another adjustment that you might want to make and negotiate with your development partner on the construction
And I'm sure
period.
he's trying to keep that out as much as possible. We can make it up in other ways.
But I think this is an exciting project, and it's one that the word transformative comes to mind. The significance, the impact on the neighborhood would be tremendous, and big lenders like to see transformative projects.
And it's a great site, because if you go down and walk around San Diego, you've got these huge, it just fits. The site is so underutilized right now. It's pretty much vacant. This project just fits in so nicely there. It really is going to be, it would be an exciting opportunity to see this thing all the way through to fruition.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions from the jury? Oh,
I
Marguerite.
just have a question. Did you decide to go for LEED accreditation?
Yeah, that lead premium that we included in there, based on the estimate from our contractor contact, he estimated that additional premium will give us a silver rating.
Okay.
And we went through the lead checklist as well and qualified for
We
that.
do actually have the lead check, because it didn't make it into the appendix of the proposal, unfortunately. But
Oh, okay. I was just wondering. I didn't know.
Yeah, so we'd be pursuing a lead silver rating.
Silver, okay.
And I feel that we've accounted pretty well for the costs that would be associated with those.
right now we have 30. Right now we have 30 points that we're for sure getting, 27 additional maybes. So that would probably add up to at least 33 points, which is the minimum for silver.
In the proposal, you had a shadow study for how the building lies around the neighborhood. I was just wondering, I don't remember how the shadow was affecting the playgrounds in the interior courtyard.
Sure. Well, the playground, actually, we're very lucky. The west right now, on the plan for the community plan, you can see that there's a dedicated view corridor to the west towards the bay. So that leaves wide clearances in the streets. So the playground actually gets full sunlight. There's no blockage from neighboring buildings or anything right now. There's actually a new tower, Sapphire Tower, that's going into the west as well right now. That's not going to block it either. It's actually on the south portion of that site. So the playground's going to be fully lit all the time, which is the reason for that 45-degree angle on the museum school, which allows some of that space the whole time. The courtyard isn't quite as lit all the time, obviously, because it's an interior courtyard. So you have the 4 stories of residential to the west of that. So the courtyard gets full sun from about, say, 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock to about 3 o'clock. And then depending on the season, there's different varying levels, because of that 4-story housing. But that's the reason that we included that stair to the south also, is it totally opens the south face. So even in the winter, you're getting at least really, really good sun from 11 to, say, 1 or 2 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any questions from the audience? All right, thanks again, guys. Very good.